What up, mathletes? Whoop, whoop. Welcome, Math 1 students, to 2.5, solving equations with absolute value. Your learning target is I will solve absolute value equations. Take a minute, go ahead, do the warm-up real quick. It should take you like 30 seconds, right? Okay, I'm assuming you did it. Again, pause it. I'm not going to take lots of breaks because I'm assuming you have the power of pause. All right, absolute value just measures distance from zero. If it's positive, it stays positive. If it's negative, it becomes positive. So absolute value of 0 is 0. Absolute value of negative 2.1 is 2.1. Of negative 5 2/3 is 5 2/3. And of 34.7 is 34.7. That's it. That's the magic. This is a short lesson. Let's talk about solving absolute value equations. In this case, for any real numbers, a and b, if the absolute value of a equals b, and b is greater than or equal to 0, I'll explain that part a little bit later, then a equals b or a equals negative b. Boom. So what does that really mean to you guys? That means absolute value of d equals 3, then it's true that d can be either 3 or negative 3. Because what's the absolute value of 3? It's 3. What's the absolute value of negative 3? It's positive 3. So either of those values of d would work in this. What does that mean for you? Well, let's look at these equations over here. You guys ready? If I have the absolute value of y plus 2 equals 4, ultimately that y plus 2 equals a single number. And that single number could be either 4 or negative 4. Okay? So I'm going to set this up as y plus 2 can equal 4. Because if y plus 2 equals 4, I'll have the absolute value of 4 is 4. Or y plus 2 can equal negative 4. Because what's the absolute value of negative 4? It's also 4. So subtract 2 from both sides. And look how I do it. I just go down the line. Minus 2, minus 2. It's the same thing, right? But watch what happens. This side, I get y equals 2. Over on this side, I get y equals negative 6. And let's test it out. If y is 2, what's 2 plus 2? It's 4. What's the absolute value of 4? 4. How about this? What's negative 6 plus 2? Well, that's negative 4. And the absolute value of negative 4 is still positive 4. So those two possible answers. Take a minute. We're going to set this up, right? What's this going to be? It's going to be f plus 5 equals 17. You're just taking what's inside here, setting it equal to the positive and negative versions. Or f plus 5 equals negative 17. Again, pause this, solve it. Let's check it. All right. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and I'm doing it twice. Over here, I get f equals 12. Over here, I get f equals, what, negative 22? Boom, we did it. Let's look at this situation right here, though. You'll get lots of practice today, but let's look at this situation right here. 3x minus 4 equals negative 1, the absolute value of it. Here's the deal. Is there anything I can take the absolute value of and get a negative? No, absolute value always gives me a positive. So when you run up to this, the absolute value of, here's how I wrote it in my notes here. Hold on, sorry, I wrote it wrong. Taking the absolute value of anything, so here's my absolute value signs, right? Taking the absolute value of anything cannot equal a negative number. Therefore, remember that means therefore, this is the null set, or no solution. Okay? Well, let's look at this situation. It looks good right now because it equals 1. That's a positive number. But notice this plus 4 is outside of the absolute value sign. So before I can do anything, I need to subtract that 4 over. Now I get the absolute value of b minus 1 equals, that's gone, negative 3. Uh-oh, that's a negative. Absolute value can't equal negative. This equals the null set or no solution. No, you don't have to write them both. I'm just writing them both for you. Now, there will be times where you are asked to graph the solution set to an absolute value problem. So it says graph the solution sets for 1, that's up here, 1a and b. So 1a, what is the solution? 2 and negative 6. Boom. I put a dot at 2 and a dot at negative 6. That's the graph. which is why I will never give you a graph like this. Here's what I'm instead going to ask you to do. So for B, the solution is 12 and negative 22. So on a number line, on the left would be negative 22, numbers in between, and positive 12. And we would put a dot on them. That's really all I need. Those are the numbers I care about, right? I understand you understand there are numbers in between. Okay? All right, really just one last thing to do. This is a pretty short lesson. Let's solve this guess your age problem. Tamika wants to play the guess your age game at the state fair. If the guess is not within 2 years of her actual age, Tamika wins a prize. Tamika is 16 years old. What are the greatest and least guesses that can be made without Tamika winning a prize? Now, you could probably puzzle this out. You could say, hey, if he guesses within 2 years of her age, up or down, then she doesn't win any prize. So 16 plus 2 equals 18. That would be the max guess. And 16 minus 2 equals 14. That is the least guess. Or what is it? Or minimum guess. Okay? How would I find this out, though, making a absolute value problem? Well, I'll show you. This is a legitimate way, by the way. I just want to show you how to use the absolute value because we can use it later in life as well for much harder problems. Tamika wants to play a guess your age game. If the guess is not within 2 years, actually, Tamika wins prize. Tamika is 16. Boom, that's important. 2 years of her actual age. What are the greatest and least guesses? Okay? So we're going to let X equal the age guess. Because we don't know what the guess is, right? It says, what are the guesses? So X equals the guess. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 16, absolute value of 16 minus X. And that should equal 2 if he's going to win and she's going to lose. Right? And here's how I prove that this works. Are you ready? If this is true, how do we solve this? Well, we do 16 minus X equals 2. And we do 16 minus X equals negative 2. I am going to subtract 16 from both sides. And I get negative X equals negative 14. If negative X equals 14, what does positive X equal? It equals positive 14. That's our minimum guess. How about over here? Subtract 16 again. And I get that negative X equals negative 18. Negative X equals negative 18. Positive X equals positive 18. Which are what we kind of just problem solved earlier. So this is how an example of how we would use absolute value in a word problem. Just keep that in mind. And our answer would be the max guess is 18. And the minimum is 14. By the way, this should show you there's a 4-year gap in between there. So he can guess 14, 15, 16, 17, or 18. He has 5 choices he can guess. 5 years to play with. Think about that for a second. That means when these guys are guessing, they're really not that impressive. They're just, I mean, they are to some extent, but really, they can get a pretty wide gap there. So keep that in mind when you play those games. All right, with that said, peace out.